I can't do it.
Okay.
We'll do it live.
Okay. No.
We'll do it live. It. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. Thing sucks.
Gets me every time. All right, welcome in. It's another edition of the Daily Puck Trump. It's Thursday, November 7th. We are broadcasting from the historic Puck Sports Studios, which is an office off my main floor. We are inside the Limbeck Lumber Studios, though. It's the Limbeck Lumber Studios. Limbeck Lumber built the Puck Sports Studios. They offer free deliveries, everything from whole house packages to homeowner DIY projects. They've got the largest stock moldings in the Northwest. They've got old school service because they've been doing it, kiddo, since 1930. Give them a call, 206-782-3487. Tell them Puck Sports sent you. All right? Tell them Puck Sports sent you. Go say hello, Mark and Matt and everybody over there. Visit them online at limbecklumber.com. We got a brand new fence in our backyard, separating our neighbors, all from Limbeck Lumber. You can follow on all the social media platforms, Twitter, Puck2040, Instagram, Puck Sports, TikTok, Puck_sports, and, of course, find all of our stuff up on Facebook there as well. And as I mentioned many, many times before, if you're watching the stream on YouTube, on X, that QR code right down there, if you're watching it, take a picture of that on your wonderful phone. And that's going to take you right to the Puck's Posse community membership. You can sign up there. You can also sign up at pucksports.com. Top banner. It'll take you there. Benefits, exclusive content, all if you join for not even that much money. Puck's Posse community membership. A reminder, giving away a $100 prize package every single month starting in January. $100, $50 to John Howie Steak, $25 to Flat Stick Pub, $25 to Georgetown Brewery. And should be note one more time if I can speak. We got a cool announcement coming up on Georgetown Brewery real soon. It's going to be coming. You are going to enjoy it very, very much. As you can tell, can you see the sweatshirt? Hold on. Can I back up? And the hat. This is the Kingdome show of record. Has been for many, many years. I'll be honest with you. I miss it. I know T-Mobile's great. All right, I know the Seahawks stadium is great. There's just, I don't know, just something about the Kingdome. I miss it. I miss that it was kind of a dump. I miss that it was that you're inside indoors in August when it's sunny outside, watching baseball on artificial turf. Yeah, I get it. I know the ceiling was falling. I get all of it. But you know what? I miss the troughs more than anything. I don't know why. I prefer the pee trough over individual urinal. It's just me. And the other thing that I miss, I think you still get this at the T-Dome. I miss the where I don't even know what you call it, where you wash your hands. You know, you got to put your foot down on it. You know, and then wash your. You know, then that little like half moon. Does everyone know what I'm talking about? Where you wash your hands? Am I being an idiot? I miss that. It's just maybe it's just the kid in me. There's just something about the Kingdome. The smell, the stench. When I was a kid and people used to smoke inside there, then they finally put an end to that. I mean, I've told this story many times. There was a Raiders fan who sat above us. We had our tickets. My dad had tickets like 300 level, 45-yard line. Oh, great tickets, by the way. But they were way up there, probably 10 rows or so from the top. And there was a Raiders fan that used to sit, had tickets. And we'd always wonder, well, why you're not a Seahawks fan? And he goes, well, I want to watch the Raiders when they come here. And I live here, and I'm not going to go down. And I think they're in L.A. at that time. He's like, I'm not going to go down to L.A. He was like a biker. He looked like a Hell's Angel guy. And he would smoke during the game. I just remember thinking as a kid, as I'm like 10 years old, can you do that? I mean, even then you couldn't do it. But no one said anything to him. One, because he looked like he would shank you. And then two, I just don't think it didn't bother them. Finally, I think after like a year or so or two, they said, hey, you can't do that anymore. And then he stopped doing it. But then you remember the Kingdome, everybody at halftime would roll out to the walkways, open up the door. Somebody cranked the door open and everyone's just out there puffing. just cigarettes everywhere. You can't smoke anywhere inside the new Seahawks stadium, right? Like nowhere. Even if you went outside on the concourse, right? I don't think you do that at all. Yeah, just a different time there, a different time at the Kingdome. And God, the viaduct was still there. You used to be able to park. You remember that? Are people old enough to remember that? I mean, I'm not that old. I'm 48. You used to be able to park underneath the viaduct, and so you'd park in between the columns, and everyone would tailgate there. God, it was fucking glorious. It was all there used to be for you people that have moved here. And I know there's probably people that are watching and listening, and however you're watching and listening, let me know. I'm curious about that. You always send me an email at pucksports.com or hit me up on Twitter, Puck2040, because we always like to mention here, not only can you watch it on YouTube, you can watch it on Twitter. I call it Twitter still because it just sounds better. And then the Puck Sports mobile app. If you don't have the Puck Sports mobile app, download it today. And I know those who listen to this show or watch this show later, just to update you, this show does go live every single day at 10 o'clock. We go 10 to 11:30. If you're on the mobile app, because I've received this, and it's not a dumb question, or because I've received this from several people, and we're working on the language on the app. When you click the live button, if you're outside of the live window, it's just going to say unavailable. It works. It's just because there's no live stream currently going on. That's why you're receiving that message. We'll work on messaging to say live stream only from 10 to 11:30. Okay. So back to what I was getting at about the Kingdome. I don't know how I got on this. Well, because I'm wearing Kingdome garb today, and I miss it. When you used to tailgate there in the viaduct, do people remember that, how much fun it was when there used to be like parking and tailgating? Like I went to a game last week that no one tailgates anymore. There's nowhere to tailgate anywhere. We have got to be the only football stadium in America that has zero tailgating. And for those, again, who are new here, you've been here for 15 years, whatever. You've long enough to claim Seattle. This used to be like in the 80s and 90s, one of the greatest tailgating spots ever. Because one, you had this is old school. When we used to have the viaduct, you used to be able to park underneath the viaduct. Here was something that was weird. It was free. You didn't have to pay for any of it. You used to be able to park all underneath the viaduct, and then the north parking lot was a zoo, a frickin' zoo. Now, I can't remember. When I was a kid, you always had to pay there. But that used to be bananas. And then as it evolved, there was what was that? Because now I can't even remember what the street is. There was was it behind? I can't remember if it was behind the old triangle. But where was, not Tailgaters Heaven. Was it called Tailgaters Heaven? I know that's further down south, like on First Avenue. But there was another spot, I think, kind of close to where the triangle was, to where there was another like back alley there. Now where I guess that's not First Ave, or what is that? That's the waterfront. So there used to be another place on there where you could tailgate. So here's my long-winded point, and no one cares except for me. Tailgating used to be awesome here, and now it's gone. All right? Now it's ruined. It really kind of does suck if you're an NFL fan, because that's kind of the most fun thing about football games, really, for me, is the tailgating. And, like, I like to go to a bar. I don't really like to go to a bar before a game. One, it's expensive, and it's just not as much fun as a tailgate. It just isn't. Someone's got a TV. Someone's got a pot of chili or whatever going on. It's more fun. That's why I like college football games more. I mean, you still see it at Husky games. It's a great tailgating spot, right? Those two huge parking lots. It's awesome. Same thing for Wazoo games. I'm going to experience it again this weekend, going back for the Utah State game. I can't wait for that because I love the parking lot where we tailgate is right there. So I don't know. Seahawks fans, we kind of got screwed over on all that. I guess as our city grew up and got so damn big, we just took all of the great tailgating spots away. What the hell? Am I crazy? Wasn't there a spot behind the triangle? Wasn't there a street behind the triangle? Hold on, I'm going to look. Let's see. Jerry, what does Jerry say here on the chat? I'm 47. Remember the good old days of batting practice was the best, especially watching Griffey and the Bash Brothers. Now that's not what I'm talking about. Everyone's got to remember. There was a spot, I swear to God, behind the triangle. that used to have great tailgating. And now I'm blanking on the name of that street. All right, let's get to the show today. Mike Garafolo is going to join us. Hopefully, fingers crossed, in about 10 or 15 minutes, get the latest on the NFL. Post DK trade talk, and we'll talk about all that and all the just stupid nonsense that came out of that. All right, just the nonsense out of all of it. Hey, look who's checking in. Hey, either it's the real Ray Roberts or it's the fake Ray Roberts. You know Ray and I. Hey, Ray. Ray says, worst turf ever, but I miss that place too. Every year I gave my gloves to a kid to the tunnel on the field. Wonder where that kid is now. It's probably me. Actually, no, I'm not that young. You know, Ray. God, Ray, good to see you check in, buddy. You know, Ray and I, we were the first 12th man post-game show on KJR, by the way. That was back in the day. That was 2000 and, oh, Jesus, now I'm going to, hold on, 2003. Yeah, 2003, because I got there in 2000. Yeah, well, I got there in 2003. God, you know, my memory's going. Yeah, and we had done a Mariners postgame show, baseball's best postgame show. People remember that. And then we started doing that year, hey, let's do a Seahawks postgame show. And they were like, hey, do you want to do it? I'm like, okay, sure, I'll do it. I got nothing going on. Why not? And I'm young and stupid. And it was great. So Ray and I think, did the first, Ray, check in. I can't remember. How many years did you do it? 2 years? I think Ray did it for 2 years. And then we did the 03-04 season. And I remember one of our last shows was a real shit show. I think it was the Rams. That must have been 04. Let me look it up. Do you guys remember when the Rams beat the Seahawks here in the playoffs? And Bobby Ingram dropped the pass. Hold on. I'm going to remember. I think it was 04, because right before the Super Bowl. And we did our last show. I think that was our last show that we worked together. And we did the post-game show at, I'm going to blank on the stupid name of the bar. Where old Mick used to run it. Why am I blanking on the bar that's down in Pioneer Square? It'll come to me in a second. FX. And that was the last show that we did, was that FX. Yeah, that's right. That was the year 2004, because they lost to the Rams 27-20, and Bobby Ingram on fourth down dropped a pass over the middle. Yeah, Ray, I'm not gonna share any secrets. Ray and I, after that, we got after it a little bit. We got after it on the post game. Good to see Ray checking in. Good guy, that old Ray Roberts. Ray, come on the show anytime you want. You're on everywhere else, for God's sakes, man. Jesus. And then 05 was when Hugh Breedlove Millen took over the post-game show. And that was a treat. I love Hugh. Just joking around. All right, so Garafolo's going to check in a few minutes, and then we'll get the latest NFL news with him, and we'll talk about DK Metcalf. How close did the Seahawks get to trading him? They didn't get close, and again, when we talked to Mike never said they were close to trading him. We just said that, hey, listen, there were calls about him. There were a lot of teams reaching out. There was teams reaching out to see if the Seahawks would do it. I think if you look at the market now and you go, well, maybe they could have, but they obviously didn't get, wowed by any offer. So you move on. I just still think it's going to be a topic in the offseason, something that Rob and I talked about yesterday, Rob Staton. And we're going to hear a comment here for Rob Staton here pretty soon. Someone asked me, where did you get that hat? Where did I get this hat? Etsy. Does anyone know Etsy? Etsy, that site? That's where I got the hat. That's where I found it. Isn't it a great hat, though? God, that's an old school. Just, God, I miss that place so much. And you know what I miss about it is just no stairs. You just kept walking around and around and around and around and around till the 300 level. It was a shithole, but it was our shithole. That was the best part about it. Good discussion yesterday with Rob, and something I'll bring up with Garafolo is, depending where this team goes here in the next few weeks, and it's really weird, the up and down nature of this football team, right? Is I think they'll have a real decision what they're going to do about the offseason and how they view themselves, as an organization here in the next 3 weeks. They got 40. They're going to be at San Francisco. Who knows if McCaffrey's back by then? They're going to come home to a Cardinals team who's playing good football, and they go at New York. And I said this earlier a week or so ago with Jim. They're going to be underdogs in every one of these games, is my guess. My guess is in the remaining games on their schedule, those three, plus they got to go at Arizona. They get the Packers, the Vikings at home, and then they finish their season at Chicago and at L.A. Maybe the Bears game, maybe. But they'll be dogs in every one of those games. I think the way the next 3 games go, though, probably determines a lot of how they view themselves in the offseason, something that I brought up to, or that we brought up together, Rob Staton, yesterday's show from SeahawksDraftBlog.com. And it's the dreaded R word. Would they start considering a rebuild?
Carry on losing. If they can't win games at home, even if it gets worse than this, then the serious questions are unavoidable. And as I said a few weeks ago, I think people interpreted this as me wanting the Seahawks to tank for draft position. It's not. I think sometimes it's like, for me, either be a contender, either be in contention for the playoffs, or if you're not, let's have the reality check. And if we're not going to have a playoff season, I want to go into the off season with everybody on the same page. Fix the issues, not, well, maybe fix them. They kind of finished okay, so let's go again next year. Like I'm not interested in that. We've done that too much over the years.
And again, that's a good point by Rob, and also a good point in our chat from Doug Lawrence. And Doug's an avid and constant daily listener. You're right about that, Doug. Triangle Bar, the best. $5. Doug, it was even a one step better than that. And if the Magnolia Belly is watching and listening, he'll remember this as well. It was not only the $5 16-ounce Coors Lights. Remember the deal. What was the deal? You used to get that tub of beer, which is what you're talking about, plus a shot. I believe all of that was $5. I believe. Might have been $7, but I think it was $5. I heard a rumor that it's coming back, that the triangle is coming back. But you know what's going to happen? It ain't going to be the same triangle. Some idiot's going to come in there and try to spruce that damn place up. Back to Rob's point and our point yesterday about the dreaded R word, which is rebuild, and no one ever wants to hear the word rebuild, okay? And this organization, I think it's funny when people say, hey, man, well, this team doesn't rebuild. Well, yeah, they did. They did it 14 years ago. What the hell was that? Of course they did. Every team goes through a rebuild. Every single team. And they did it in 2010. I mean, we could go back and look. They stripped that team down. Now, they ended up making the playoffs, and it was great, and it was a phenomenal, weird, crazy, dysfunctional, stupid season. But, they did it. But they did rebuild. And they did for sure. So when people say, hey, this team doesn't rebuild, well, they did, and they did it 14 years ago. I think that it would be wise for them if the season gets out of control here and they find themselves losing the next 3 games. I think it's something they've got to give some serious consideration to, because I would just ask you this. Listen, we're all Seahawks fans. The majority of us, we got a freaking Kingdome hat on. I love that place, and I love the Seahawks. But you have to ask yourself, like, a serious question here, a real serious question. How close are they to winning a championship? I mean, answer it. Answer it in the chat. Answer it to yourself right now. Turn to your coworker and just ask them. Roll down the window when you're at the stoplight and ask the person next, hey, excuse me, sir, ma'am, roll down your window. Can we call people sir and ma'am anymore? Or have we crossed the line? because I do when I say it to some people, you get this little weird look. But also, someone did it to me the other day, and I kind of was like, they're like, hey, sir, and I'm like, sir, hey, F you, man, I'm 48, I'm not that old. Is it disrespectful? Do you have to pick and choose when you call someone sir and ma'am? Anyways, roll down your window, and ask them, hey, how close are they? How close do you think they are? I mean, I don't. You asked me this question. I mean, I think the NFL, you can turn things around pretty quickly. Not in a year or two, but just think about this. I mean, they don't have a long-term solution at Geno, and I think by the time that they actually might be in that window, he's 35 years old. I think he's too old to play the position anymore. And I think Garafolo's asked me this question all the time. I want you to, and he was the first one to bring it up. Close your eyes, look up and then, open your eyes and look up in the rafters at the Super Bowl media day. Do you see a picture of him up there? I mean, I don't. And that's not to say he's a bad quarterback, man. There's been plenty of good quarterbacks, really good quarterbacks that obviously never sniffed the Super Bowl. Okay, I mean that's not a some type of statement on Geno Smith. I think Geno Smith is a hell of a story. I think it's a story I'd love to tell my kids about perseverance, about never giving up your dream, and all of that. Because here's a guy that was a draft pick, and then he goes and he flames out, and he's not good, and yada yada yada, and then all of a sudden, now he's putting up crazy numbers in the NFL. So he's a great story, but I just don't think that with where they're at right now, and their single biggest, well, not their single biggest issue, but their single biggest issue is they just can't block anyone. They're never going to be one of those championship teams unless they can block someone, and that's their main issue. And I don't know, is that close to being solved? That's why I'm left speechless. I mean, they have had how many years, to get it right. And again, there's a lot of good that Schneider has done, but he has failed in that arena. He's failed in that arena in order to make them a championship caliber team. He just has. And he's failed in terms of getting them ready for post-Russell Wilson. All right. Mike Garafolo is at the airport. I think he's walking through the security line, and he joins us. Mike Garafolo of the NFL Network in the airport. This is a walk and talk interview with Garafolo. How are you, Mike?
I'll sit down eventually. My flight's delayed, so there's no rush, so I won't take you through security with me.
Okay. Well, I don't think you can. I don't think you can go through security.
On the phone?
Yeah, I don't think you can. I don't think that's allowed.
They frown upon that?
I think they
Should I
do.
not do that?
I'm pretty sure you can. Mike Garafolo joins us, NFL Network. It's brought to you by Hartley & Hartley Insurance, your trusted family-owned insurance experts in the Puget Sound area since 1978. For honesty, fairness, and integrity, contact our good man, Jamie Hartley, at 253-565-8700. Also, Zogs on Fox Island, the perfect spot to grab a cold beer, hang out with friends, catch the game. Check out Zogs on Facebook and Instagram for fall hours and event times. Were you on the West Coast? Now you're going back home?
Yeah, I'm in LA. And the escalator, well, that wasn't supposed to happen. The escalator up is broken, and I know I've done this before. I've gone inside, and then they say, no, the escalator up is outside. So let me just get inside and find a place to sit so you don't have to listen to buses.
This is,
like
I mean,
TMZ,
I want, well, it's kind of like TMZ, and I just kind of want to watch you get out of breath, is really what I want to see.
All right, here we go. We're inside. We're gonna take a seat, and we'll do it stationary here.
All right.
So hit your first question while I'm walking.
What was the experience like in LA? Why were you out in LA?
So it started with me saying, Good Morning Football 2.0 has been on for a couple of months. I'm like, I haven't done the show. I used
Yeah.
to do the show a bunch when it was in New York. And I said, I'm happy to pop in. Let's just stand over here. And do it in New York because we've got a coast to coast show now. We've got some folks in New York, some folks in LA. And I said, I'm happy to just pop into the studio right across the river. And they said, well, why don't you come out for a couple of days? And when we booked it, we realized it was the trade deadline week, which is fine because I got to be in the studio the entire day, not be disrupted by kids. It actually wound up working out perfectly because doing all that, like free agency every year, my wife, I got to remind her, she forgets how the NFL calendar works. But like I'm there, but I'm not there. Like for 3 days, I am not available. You can see me through the window of my office, but that's about it.
Yeah.
The trade deadline, she's not aware of that yet. I really have to kind of break that to her at some point. So it was good to be out here to be able to do it. I was on every show. I was in the office for 16 hours that day, but we had some fun.
Is she aware of what you do?
Is she? No. Well, every year. So let's say training camp.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, we got 2.5 weeks of NFL inside training camp on NFL Network, and she's like, "Well, how long? Wait, 2 weeks? That's a long time. We do this every year. I know, but I forget. Well, is that my fault? You forgot. Like, put it on your calendar. So yeah, she's aware, but she's not a fan, which is fine. I don't need her to be a fan. I mean, I think it would kind of be annoying at times to be, right before bed. So what do you think the Seahawks are going to do in the offseason? You think they're bring Geno?
Well, I mean, that's a little bit of foreplay, Mike. Everybody gets in. What are the Seahawks going to do in the offseason? Whoa, did you say Seahawks? Hey,
hold on. When I first I'm watching Sports Center or something, right? And she goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "What do you mean?" She's like, "Why are you watching sports?" I was like, "Because I like it." She goes, "Well, I don't watch CNBC when I come home." She's in financials.
Yeah.
That's on you, man.
Yeah, well, no one wants to watch that. Why the hell would you want to watch that? No one wants to watch the CNBC financials.
Yeah.
All right, well, we're through the trade deadline. Listen, we talked last week about DK Metcalf. You said, hey, listen, he's not going to get traded. Yeah, there were phone calls, and there was people that probably wanted to pry him away or at least, kick the tires on it. He ultimately did not. And then, there was a reaction to some in this town of like, oh, here it is. It's national media people making up a story about something that didn't exist. And I kind of like, well, did it not exist? Like, how does anybody truly know that it existed or did not exist? I mean, there's like, are you in John Schneider's room? I mean, do you know exactly what was transpiring? Yeah. You made it very clear last week that, listen, they weren't going to deal him, but also, hey, who knows if someone blows you away with, a crazy amount of draft picks. Do we know how many people tried to call the Seahawks about him? And I mean, there was a market for wide receivers, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, the story was first presented as the Seahawks are receiving calls on DK Metcalf. All right, fine, but like, are they going to act on it? And that's why you asked me about it, and I was told that they're not going to act on it. It turned out in the end that they didn't act on it, so that wound up being accurate information. I just talk about my wife again.
Yeah.
Hey, this guy was flirting with me. Well, did you do anything about it? No. Okay, Then we're fine. Like, no problem, right? Construction workers catcalling you? Fine, no problem.
Right.
You just keep walking. That's basically what happened in this situation. So the question now is, what's the long-term plan as he goes into his contract year next year? If I've got my contract information correct, you can stop me if I'm wrong. 2025 is the last year of his deal,
Yep.
if I'm not
No, you
mistaken.
got it.
Okay. All right. So that'll be now because he's not going to want to go on the last year of his deal. And this could be something that lasts all the way up to training. This could be Jamar Chase didn't do his deal. Let's call it CD Lamb. This could be, CD Lamb where you're in training camp and who knows, maybe he doesn't show up and, or it's a hold in or something like that. I mean, if it lasts that long, there'll be pressure points along the way. Start of the season, start of the league year in March, off-season workouts, mini camp, OT. There'll be plenty of points for this to get done. But I think that's going to be your storyline there in Seattle this upcoming offseason.
And again, we've talked a lot about DK Metcalf, and we talked a lot about a contract. Listen, I don't want to get rid of him. I like DK. I mean, he's not a perfect player, but there's not a perfect person. No one is perfect. But I mean, listen, for a team that feels, Mike, a lot further away from a championship than closer. At least that's what, like boots on the ground. That's what it feels like here. Would it be wise to go into and sign him to a lengthy contract at his age? I mean, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, that's probably what we're talking about, right? That's in the neighborhood of 4 or 5 years, $140 million, $100 million guaranteed. Does it make sense for an organization to do that when there are so many holes on this football team, specifically on the offensive line?
How far away are they, though? I mean, these holes in the offensive line. If Abe Lucas comes back and he's healthy and Charles Cross stays healthy, you've got 2 cornerstone tackles here. You can fill it in via the draft and free agency. You've got guys that are being drafted. Zach Frazier for the Pittsburgh Steelers, they drafted him and right away felt good about him contributing immediately. How far away are they? I mean, they're a competitive team right now. They've got the makings of a really good head coach. I would just say we can go up and down the roster.
Sure.
The quarterback position, to me, is where I have my questions, right? Like, we've had this discussion before. Are you winning a Super Bowl with Geno Smith? Probably not. Are you making the playoffs? Yeah, you're making the playoffs. Are you winning the Super Bowl? So that, to me, is when you make the move there, whether it's a high draft pick or whatnot, now that's a championship caliber position or it's not a championship caliber position.
Well, I guess, yeah, and I agree with you. I mean, I think the worry here for a lot of people is this. They have, is great a job that John Schneider has done, along with Pete Carroll over the years, of constructing a team for the last 14, 15 years and made them championship caliber for the most part of the tenure. One thing in the last decade that they have failed on is, and again, I'm not going to knock him for Abe Lucas. I mean, that's an injury. And so Abe Lucas looked like he was on the right path, and I think Charles Cross is on the right path. He's playing good. Yep. But it's the interior of their offensive line they have continued to fail at. And so I think there's great doubt here in this town of whether or not they can ever fix it, because it's been 10 years and they haven't been able to do it.
I mean, at some point, yeah, there are. I've seen that with teams from time to time. It's like, why can't you just? You're really good about. Why can't you just get this position right? And sometimes it's the quarterback position, which is a real problem. Yeah. I remember that Bears, Ryan Pace's Bears. They were so good. 52 of the 53 spots in the roster. Mitchell Trubisky at the quarterback position, drafted incredibly highly, eventually fired. Like, it's just you can't duck that forever. These are things that should be fixable in free agency, again via the draft. Like, it's just the harder part. I just went over this the other day with somebody. They said, when was the last fourth round, high level Hall of Fame caliber? I mean, maybe I'm going too far, but the last time a fourth round offensive tackle was left tackle, and I was like, they're either first round picks, highly drafted first round picks, or seventh round / undrafted projects. Jason Peters, converted tight end. Jordan Mailata, rugby guy that the Eagles converted. Because that's why you have to do that late and into undrafted free agency. Look for the guy who's never played football before or whatever, or changing positions, and he's got the ability to do that. So it's a lot harder to do that at the tackle position than it is interior. Second day of the draft is usually where you can get some really good interior draft picks. So they got to get to work on that.
I think. You're obviously familiar with the organization. I think from a personal standpoint, how much internal pressure maybe is on John? Because again, he's doing this now without, and whoever, I don't know the information of who had the final say and all that kind of stuff. It seemed like they worked together on all these deals, but for the first time in his professional career, right, he is overseeing all of it. It's his call. There's got to be a lot of personal and professional pressure to make it work on him.
Well, how much runway do you give him before you start to say that, though, right? If you really truly believe that he didn't have final say during his time with Pete Carroll, which he didn't, but obviously they worked well enough together, and Pete had enough trust in him to allow him to do most of what he wanted to do. you got to now sit there and say, well, you can't make a call like that or put the pressure on him after just 1 year, especially because, and listen, he's a victim of his own success. And that I've told you this before. You got to be in position to draft a quarterback. Again, I think that's the big key component that's missing from this roster. And you got to be bad to do that. They just haven't been that bad. The 1 year they were bad was the Jamal Adams trade, right, where that pick went to the Jets instead. If I'm recalling, what number pick was that? 6?
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I would say at some point he is fully in charge. And back to your question about internal pressure, ownership sided with him last year, right? I mean, it was coach, GM, and not that there was some kind of coup to oust Pete Carroll or anything like that, but there were conversations had, and instead of making it a clean break, it was, we're going to change the head coach. We still believe in what John Schneider has done and can do for this organization.
Yeah. And then again, I think he's going to get this year, he's going to get next year, but you kind of alluded to it. There eventually will be a time where it's like, okay, we gave you the reins and it didn't turn out like we thought it was going to turn out, right? I mean, but that happens in all walks of life, in all walks of businesses.
Well, they're not there yet. I mean, it's the first year.
Yeah, you're right.
This is going to be a big offseason for John Schneider. There's no doubt about it. Like, you need to put Mike a stamp on this team that fits with what Mike McDonald wants to do, and that's going to be the big. They started to get some pieces last year, but now it's really, what do you need? Who do you need? Who are you comfortable with that or in the draft as well, that we can sort of fit what you want to do from a defensive standpoint and a culture standpoint.
You ever think, and Mike Garafolo is with us from the LAX airport. We're going to hold him here as long as we can, because I just want to see if all these workouts he's been doing is going to allow him to hold this phone up for, again, 10 more minutes or so.
I'm switching arms. You can see me switching arms, right?
I can. Do you think they would get, I just brought this up before you came on, just looking at their schedule right now. I mean, you got the 49ers coming up, who they may or may, we'll get into McCaffrey, whether or not he's going to be back or not. Then after that, you got the Cardinals coming at home. Cardinals are playing better football. And then you got to go at New York. And listen, you got to travel all across the country. They're going to be underdogs in probably all 3 of these games. If they end up losing all 3, do they transition at all? You don't hear this a lot in the NFL, not like baseball. Do they get into we need to get into a rebuild mode in the offseason?
I don't think it's a rebuild mode. I don't think that they're at that point. And again, if it was a rebuild thing, they would have dealt DK at the trade deadline, and they didn't. And not that to say they can't do it in the offseason if they wanted to do it at that point. And maybe they start to have contract talks and they don't like where it's going. We saw that with Tyreek Hill. At some point, the Chiefs were like, forget it. He wants too much. Let's just ship him out. We'll make do, and they did. So it's not to say that it can't happen before the start of the season, but if they were already there, they would have done it. I can't imagine that all of a sudden if they don't make the playoffs, it's a different mindset. So I think that they try to capitalize on the early success that they had this year and, make sure it lasts. It sort of reminds me of where the Cardinals were last year. Jonathan Gannon comes in as head coach. They were really good early in the season, really competitive early in the season. Then they had a big-time lull in the middle. And then at the end, they still didn't win games, but they felt like they were playing harder and they were playing smarter. That is starting to pay off now in the second year. So I would think that that's sort of the path that you want to be on if things don't go well this offseason. Just continue to believe in what you're doing and in your new head coach and start to, again, give him the personnel that makes sense for him.
I think we talked about this at the time. But Mike McDonald didn't have much of a say or interaction like in the offseason, right, when he was hired, like combine, draft, and things like that. Do you think that he'll be more involved this offseason?
He didn't. What makes you say he didn't?
Well, but he didn't go to the combine, right? Wasn't that like a big deal last year that he didn't go?
Yeah, because he was hired. But a lot of teams don't go. I mean, teams that have veteran coaches don't. Okay. Sean McVay never goes. That's a new thing with the evaluate. It's not valuable for our time. But he was involved. I mean, he was involved in the free agent process, the draft process. Again, I would if I'm John. That's my biggest thing. All right, let me understand or I should understand now fully what you're about after spending a year with you. Now let me match guys that match both your scheme and your personality and your culture.
Yeah. Have they begun already, or do you wait until when do you? Well, because he's a free agent. Do you expect something to happen with Ernest Jones before we get out of the season?
I don't know. Possible, but I would think it's more of an off-season type thing. I mean, they're going to get him in house, and they like him. I know they like him. You see what he's about, and you see, it only helps him, by the way, if he plays and shows out, and all of a sudden now you can go in the off-season and say, hey, you traded for me. I played well. We can now address something after the season, or maybe it's late in the season. It's one of those things where a team, if they do a deal before the end of the regular season, we've seen that not so much recently, but we saw it in the relatively recent past, where it helps them put some of it on this year's cap if they've got the space to be able to do that. So you could see something like that. We'll see.
How are the arms holding up?
I'm hanging.
Trade surprises. Did anything surprise you? That a trade that was made or a trade that wasn't made?
I thought Azeez Ojulari with the Giants, the pass rusher, was being traded at some point because I thought I knew that the Giants weren't going to just give him away. I just thought at some point somebody would offer a fifth or something like that, and they never did. I mean, they wanted him for a sixth or a seventh, and the Giants said, no, it's not worth it to us. We'd rather hang on and see if we can re-sign him in the offseason, which I don't think they're going to. That's going to be a guy that's going to make a ton of money because I think he's going to wind up double-digit sacks. He's had 8 in a season before. So this is a guy who's going to make he's going to be this year's Bryce Huff that signed with the Eagles for a ton of money. 3 years, 51, I want to say. So Azeez Ojulari not getting dealt was a surprise. Mike Williams, we knew from the time that Devontae Adams was dealt that was going to happen. Maybe I was surprised, at the time, Preston Smith, but then you go back and you realize it was actually in the works for a couple of weeks. Trying to think of what other one. But and listen, the Preston Smith one.
What about the Lattimore one?
I guess I was surprised because when Dennis Allen was fired, first of all, Lattimore and Dennis Allen did not have a great relationship. So he gets fired, and then the Saints sources that we spoke to were adamant, hey, this is not going to be a teardown. And then they traded one of their best players the next day. But the return, getting a third-round pick is as part of that deal. No first-round pick has been dealt yet. Matter of fact, I had our research team check the other day. First time since 2001, we've gotten through the trade deadline with no first-round picks being dealt. Now, a lot of times that happens in the previous offseason. Somebody makes a trade to draft a quarterback. They give up 2 first-round picks. So it's it sort of carries out a couple of years in advance. This is the first time we've gotten to this far where all 32 teams are holding their first-round pick for next year. Only 3 second-round picks have traded hands. Now, it could be a 4th for Devontae Adams, but it doesn't look like he's got to be an all-pro, and they got to make the Super Bowl. So right now, to get a day 2 pick and a third-round pick, they really couldn't turn that down. So, yeah, I'd say I would have expected him to not be moved, but they got the action late, and it happened.
It's amazing the Commanders. I mean, they must have surprised themselves that they were in this position to pull off a move like that.
Yeah,
heading into this year.
And they're now sending a message to their locker room and to their fan base. I mean, everything is really about we've been waiting for these days, and we're not going to take them for granted. I mean, that's literally what Terry McLaurin said when I interviewed him after the game. I don't take these days for granted. He's been around for such worse days. But it's the fact that you've got a rookie quarterback on a rookie contract that's playing well. It affords you for the first 3 years of his career to be able to be more aggressive in other areas. And they're doing that right now. Because then once you give him the big contract extension, it's going to be tough to spend money elsewhere. Because by the time he gets his deal, it's going to be $70 million a year. We're already at 60. So they're doing that right now. They're saying we're not waiting for the offseason. We're going to do that right now. We're not playing with house money. We've got the chance to compete. We're going to do that right now.
Hey, go back. I want to go back to the Seahawks for just a quick second. You mentioned it. Hey, listen, I think the biggest offseason question mark is going to be Geno Smith. Can you, and I referenced this before you came on, can you look up in the rafters and see his image, on Super Bowl media day? And I think most people here say, yeah, no, they can't. Okay, yeah. if they don't bring him back, I mean, what options do they have? And this does tie into DK because if they decide Geno's not the guy, then I don't see why it's worth spending the money on DK Metcalf because now you are you're a couple years away from doing anything because you don't have a quarterback. Because Sam Howell doesn't appear to be the guy. And if you draft a guy, well, then that's going to bring its own, bumps, and that's going to take a few years. So where would they go? Where would they turn their attention?
I think this quarterback class, from what I heard, these quarterbacks have not really lit the world on fire. So this may not be as top heavy. They may be available through the first round. So if you're somewhere in the middle of the first round and you get a little bit aggressive and get up, like a Mahomes type situation where it's back end of the Josh Allen. We've had so many quarterbacks, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at some point, and Michael Penix could be a good example, I guess. But I think this could be the year that they finally decide we got to make a move, we got to get somebody. So that's an option, obviously. Free agency wise, Sam Darnold's not going to do it for me. I wouldn't, and that doesn't strike me as one that John Schneider would be like, well, we can get Sam.
Yeah,
I think everybody understands that he's sort of in that same category of maybe get you to the playoffs in the right situation, but not going to win you a Super Bowl. So I think Seahawks around draft time could be interesting.
Yeah, well, he's not. Two of them, 2 quarterbacks in his tenure that he's drafted. That's it.
Yep.
Russell Wilson and Alex Magoo.
Magoo, that's right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Alex freaking Magoo. Hey, what are the Panthers doing? Why would you?
No idea.
I don't get it. I don't get this. Why are they signing Chubba Hubbard to a contract extension?
Well, first of all, there's no guarantee that Jonathan Brooks is, coming back from the ACL is going to be the same, right? That's number one. But number two, he's going to be a free agent. It's about what he would probably make on the market. But I don't know. I gave you the reason, but also, and there's no question in my mind. They're playing in Germany. They're in a big spotlight this week. The owner wanted it done now. Like, give me something good here. No question.
How serious is the Prescott injury? He's taking some heat. Get out back on the field. Now your reports coming out it's being pulled off, the hamstring's being pulled off the bone. God, like it's been in some slow cooker for God's sakes.
No, right. It sounds delicious.
It does. Is there nothing better than like whatever type of meat you like a pork shoulder, putting it in a slow cooker, letting it sit for like 9 hours, and then going back in there and just pulling it all off? God, it's so good.
Yeah, when you say fall off the bone, people love that.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, no, it's bad. It's could be a season. Really.
Wow.
It sounds like it's going to be 4 weeks plus. And then there could be surgery involved. So if Dak Prescott doesn't play again, and now look, at this point, I got to see Trey Lance.
That's why I don't understand. Why? Just let's see if he can play.
Well, you're still in that. Maybe we hang on for a couple of weeks and he comes back because he's getting all the medical evaluations. But once he's done, even if it's just regular IR, even if it's 4 weeks, which it sounds like that's at very least it's going to be that. I got to see him out there.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, what are we doing? So, and I heard, the development hasn't been necessarily what they would have hoped to this point. So, but I don't know. I'm not there watching practice every day.
Lamar's availability tonight. He's in, right?
Yeah, he's good to go. To go. Isaiah Likely's out for the Ravens. Keaton Mitchell, the running back. What time is it? He's going to be activated sometime soon, I believe.
Okay.
So he'll make remember how dynamic he was last year. Orlando Brown, the tackle for the Bengals against his former team, does not sound like he's going to be able to play. That's a tough loss for Cincinnati. Who else? There was another. T. Higgins is doubtful. That's not happening.
Okay.
Feel like I missed one, but that's about it.
Christian McCaffrey, do you think he plays against Seattle?
I do. Oh, wait.
So, really?
Wait. I think he plays this week.
Yeah, who the Niners got this week?
I don't know. It's not Seattle. They're in a bye.
I got it. I'll look it up. So you think he'll play this week, huh?
Yes, I believe he's going to play this week. I do. Yep.
The Niners are at Tampa Bay. Okay.
I knew that one. Yes. And then look, it's Jordan Mason affords you and Garendo affords you the luxury of not having to play him more than 10 to 15 snaps if you don't want to. Yeah. But apparently everything has gone incredibly well. I believe he's going to be out there.
Boy, this in-season and off-season workouts that you've been doing is really paying off. It's just the arms. You're doing a smooth transition, left arm to right arm to hold up the phone while at the airport. It really is one of the most incredible athletic feats I've seen this year.
Saquon Barkley leaping a defender? Mike holding up his phone for a half an hour at the
It's
the airport to
amazing.
talk
It's
to Puck?
amazing. Hey, how many openings do you think? I love, it's crazy because the
See, here I
NFL's.
thought you were done too.
No, I'm not done. I'm not. I got
sadly
a couple.
mistaken.
I got a couple more that I'm done. There's so much. The league is so much about parity, right, Mike? And there's usually most teams are kind of still in it. This year, I mean, God, there's so many teams that with 2 wins they're done, and
my joke.
And it's over.
I was slowly dropping the camera to be like, well, let's let this guy go. How many coaching openings?
How many openings?
Yeah,
Jets, Browns, Jags, Raiders, Giants, Bears. Who am I missing?
I don't know about the Raiders. We'll see.
Oh, really?
Browns. I will see about the Browns too as well.
Okay.
So what were the other ones? Jets,
Jags, Giants, and Bears.
No, Giants are not firing him.
Really?
Brian Dable. Yeah, Brian Dable's staying.
Okay. Bears for sure, right? They're going to make
Cowboys,
a move, aren't they?
Cowboys. Bears are going to make a move. Yeah, Bears is going to make a move.
Cowboys?
Cowboys. You said the Saints. They're already done.
Oh, I did not mention the Saints. I forgot about the Saints.
Yeah, Saints are already done. Geez, I'm trying to remember.
I think
got me going through the divisions in my head.
All right, that's fine. I think we've covered it. Who is going to be is there going to be a hot college name out there that everyone's going to want? Oh, we got to interview that guy.
Who's the guy in Iowa State? He used to come up every single Matt Campbell.
Matt Campbell every time.
Every single year. But it stopped for a while because now they're not undefeated anymore, right? They're 7-1 now.
Yeah.
So he'll be mentioned. Chip Kelly's going to try to get his name in there.
No, he's not. The Chipster's going to get back.
Not as a head coach. He tried last year. He was almost the head, which frankly he would have been a better coordinator than Getsy for the Raiders. He was the runner-up.
Wasn't he trying to angle for the Commander's job?
Chip?
Like offensive coordinator? Wasn't he trying to be with Dan Quinn?
He almost was it was Cliff Kingsbury, Chip Kelly, Luke Getsy, and Kingsbury took it, then turned it down. So they went to Chip, and by the time they went to Chip, I think he already had Ohio State in the works or something. And so they went with Getsy as number. So he would have been the Raiders coordinator if they picked him. And he was in the mix, I think, in Washington too. Yeah.
So he wants to get back into the NFL, but as a coordinator.
No, I mean, I'm sure he'd love to be a head coach, but he wanted to leave UCLA as a head coach to be a coordinator in the NFL. All these head coaches are like, I can't stand this. This is nonstop all year round. They get like 1 month of a break from the NIL garbage.
Okay, what about?
By the way, it's not. Let me not garbage. In their mind, it's garbage.
Well, no, I understand. I know what you're saying. I get it. Lincoln Riley, Deion Sanders. Will their names be brought up in the NFL circles?
100%, no question. Will it happen? I don't know. I don't know.
All right.
But Deion would be fun. If you said to me, covering Deion as a head coach, and I used to do a show with Deion. Deion loves me. Let's bring him to the NFL. Let's have
okay, wait a minute. On the NFL Network?
Yeah, it was called 21st and Prime. It was a corner of 21st and Prime.
Oh, I remember that.
Prime. And I was the news guy. They're like, we got to have a news guy come in at the start of the show. So Amber Theo Harris hosted it, and I would come in as a news guy, and we would and I'd give and then he'd give my take on what news I was delivering, and we taped it every Tuesday. And he was like, Mikey G, I like you, Mikey G. I like you, Mikey G. I was like, all right, Prime, what's up, man? Cool.
I gotta find where I'm now. All I'm doing right now is looking up. I'm trying to find pictures of you guys doing the show together.
Now here's the question:
21st and Prime.
Here's the question: does Prime remember that I was part of the show that he did every week?
No, but he would lie and say he does.
Good. I don't care. Humor me.
All right, last thing before your arms fall off, okay? And then we're done. And it's non-football question, but I want to ask you as a journalist and as people that don't know, Mike he's worked everywhere, right? You see him on TV, but he worked in sports radio. He was a long time, worked in the newspaper industry. He's covered it all. There's a story that hit in your town, the city you grew up in, Philadelphia, right? With Marcus Hayes. I'm just curious your opinion on it. I've talked a lot about it this week, and I know Joel Embiid's going to get killed for what's going on and all of that. But there has got to be a line for journalists and a columnist that you cannot cross. And when you start mentioning family members, have you crossed that line? And I'm just wondering if there was, from a journalist standpoint, how did you feel about how that storyline and how it developed?
Like push comes to shove, I would say it didn't need to be. You didn't need to make the connection between a family member that passed on and a performance in the basketball court. But I understand the point. The point was he's playing for things that are bigger than him, and he's got pride, and he's saying all this stuff. Well, let's see it be put on the line. Let's see that legacy that you want to leave. Let's see you fight through some stuff that you have to be able to fight through. So I get it, but I don't think that, like, reading those 2 paragraphs in the story, if I was editing the story, I'd say you don't need this first paragraph to make the point in the second one.
Yeah.
And you can just say, like, hey, he wants to leave a legacy. Okay, wants to leave a legacy. Got to be on the court to do that, and we're not here. We're not having this conversation if you just, So I do understand where he was coming from, Marcus. I'd say he probably shouldn't have, but I'm not as far across that line it's not, in my mind, not as far across that line as maybe some other people think.
You ever get a player ever get confrontational with you?
Yes.
Can you give me an example?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it was ever personal.
Physical? Did anyone ever get physical?
No, but I thought Shockey was going to hit me one day.
Oh, Jeremy Shockey.
I thought Jeremy Shockey was
when you were covering the Giants for the Daily News, right?
For the Star Ledger. Jersey. Yeah. Because he said something after a game. The guy was coming from the other team, and he turned back and was like, "What?" But I asked him about it. I didn't want to be like, "Oh, this guy said something," and not find out what the context was. And he was like, "No, I know him. He's right." But instead of just saying it that way, I was like, "Oh, listen, I'm just trying to." And as I was trying to explain, I was just trying to get clarity. Like, you should be thanking me for asking you instead of just writing what I thought I saw. And he was like, up. And finally, the PR guy, oh, all right, we're done here. I said, all right, good. I think you just you stopped the line of questioning, but I think you just saved me from getting my face bashed in. Jabril will. Oh, I know what it was. Oh, okay, so this is good. Actually, this is a good one. Okay, so Antrell Roll signs with the Giants as a free agent.
Yeah.
And he goes on the radio. He's got a weekly radio hit with WFAN. And a weekly TV hit with SNY, not hosted, but I did the 3-question interview. And every week on Tuesday, he would go say something controversial on WFAN. And then on Wednesday, I would be Mr. Put the toothpaste in the tube back in. I'd ask him the same stuff. And he'd be, well, no, I didn't mean that. I was just kind of saying it. He's one of these guys, like, he would say something, and then when there's backlash for it, be, like, upset that there's backlash for what he said on the radio. So, and I hated that I was cleanup guy. I hated it. But anyway, through the first couple of weeks, so I go, you know what? I'm going to write a big blowout feature on this guy. I'm going to give you the why he's so outspoken. So I did a whole thing about him and his family. Matter of fact, I went to the house after practice on Friday, his new apartment, and his mother was there setting up the new apartment, and she had opinions on everything. And so I painted this picture of, he comes from a family of people who speak their mind. It was a great story. I'm, to this day, still very proud of it. But like 20 inches into the story, I quote her as saying he's having no fun. Like, oh, this is why he's having no fun over there, because Tom Coughlin's a hard ass. A quote. Like, not even I wrote. Like, it was just a quote. And I didn't, like, blow it up in the top of the story and put it in the headline. Like, it was 20 inches into the story. Well, Pro Football Talk grabs that quote. Antrell Roll's mom. He's having no fun playing for Tom Coughlin. They play the game. They win the game. I'm outside the locker room. Phone rings. Antrell Roll's mother. I didn't say that. Mrs. Roll, you said that. But you didn't have to, like, put it in the headline. I said I didn't put it in the headline. I put it in my story. They grabbed it. That's on them. You got to go call them and talk to them. But I didn't say he was having no. So we're going in circles. Okay, Mrs. Roll, I'm sorry. I'm happy to play the tape for you. Come find me. She never did. Obviously, whatever. Next day, he's looking for me. I'm like, dude. He goes, you can't put that crazy stuff of my mom saying in the paper. I'm like, I'm writing the story, and nobody thought like he's having no fun. But obviously, he and Coughlin were butting heads. Anyway, we patch it up. And then down the line, I reference it again, and he just You're done. I'm like,
Okay.
all right, fine. So
I love
yeah.
it. I have,
Also, I'll give you one more quick one.
yeah.
So 2005, I no Blackberries, no nothing. You got your cell phone. That's it.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
write my story in Green Bay. The Giants are 3-1 or 4-1. Nobody expected them to be. It was an off season of turmoil, and I'm just starting out on the beat. Just starting out. So I write a story, file it, fly home, right from the airport, right to the locker room for Monday access. Sean O'Hara is waiting at the door for me. Okay? I go, yeah. He goes, how could you call us a whiny bunch of malcontents? And I was like, what? He goes, you wrote in the paper that we're a whiny bunch of... It's like, no, Sean, I'm Mike from the Star. I know who you are. I was like, and I realized my editor had rewritten my story. It was like the third time he had done that because his style, he used to cover the team, and his style was very brash, confrontational.
Yeah.
And if he felt like I wasn't going hard enough in some areas, he would rewrite the copy. So I go back to it, and I call it up, and I was like, oh, my God, none of this is mine. Like, he just rewrote the whole story. So I call him, and I was like, listen, here's the deal. And he's, by the way, I got to put this out there, one of the most amazing editors you would ever want to work with. He's awesome. His instincts are unbelievable. He's got great ideas. But I just said to him, like, I can't walk in there and have no idea what they're talking as they're waiting for it. Okay, all right, I won't do that as much. I said, but listen, if you feel like I'm not, let me know. Call me. Hey, we need to do more. Okay, we can talk about it. But like, I can't be a surprise to me while I'm walking in the locker room. Sean and I still laugh about that to this day.
I didn't know you could, like, an editor could actually change, like, actually what was in the story.
Yeah, they can do whatever they want.
Yeah, that's without talking to you first.
Well, that was my biggest thing. Was like, dude, I can't even defend myself. I don't even know what's going on, you know. And he did after that. He was. But again, a great editor. Let me make that clear because I said this on a podcast once, and he heard it, and he's like, "Can I get my 2 minutes to respond?" I was like, "Oh, dude, I didn't." So I got to put that disclaimer. Kevin Manahan is his name. He's unbelievable. He was then my editor at USA Today. He hired me over there quickly, and then I left the week before the Aaron Hernandez thing, and he had to cover it. So he was breaking stories left and right. The local news people were losing their minds because he was just an unbelievable reporter. He was a bulldog. He's great.
I couldn't find any of you all together, but there's Dion right there. 21st and Prime, Amber Theoris. Right? I know, but none were like all three of you were together.
There's got to be a clip out there, no?
Yeah. I remember that. I forgot that he used to work for you guys at the network. Totally forgot that.
Prominent role at our place, yeah.
Yeah. All right, I've held you long enough, man. You did a great job, okay? Keep those workouts, buddy. Keep those workouts. You're the best, Mike. We'll see you next week.
Be on with you every week from the airport. Love you, Puck. See you, buddy.
See you, bud. There he is. Mike Garafolo, NFL Network. I love that guy to death. It's all brought to you by Hartley and Hartley Insurance, your trusted family-owned insurance experts in the Puget Sound area since 1978. For honesty, fairness, and integrity, contact Jamie Hartley, 253-565-8700. Also contact Zogs on Fox Island. They're another one of the sponsors. Duh. Big win there for Andrew Herzog's Oregon Ducks, and he was sending me pictures left and right from Ann Arbor. The man did it open to close. He was just drinking his life away. There for the Ducks. Zogs on Fox Island, great place to watch the game, grab a cold beer, hang out with friends. Zogs on Facebook and Instagram for their new fall hours and times. Mike Garafolo with us every Thursday from the Puck Sports Studios, built by the one and only Limback Lumber. Big thanks to Limback Lumber for sponsoring the studios. Big thanks to Hartley and Hartley Insurance and Zogs on Fox Island. In case you missed Mike's episode, it'll be up on YouTube. Also to watch and view Puck Sports there. Also on Apple and Spotify, wherever you find your podcast. And, of course, every videos, audio, everything up at pucksports.com, including signing up for the Pucks Posse membership there as well. Everything up at pucksports.com. Yeah, Jeff, you're right here on the chat. You're 100% right. We are, you guys, the viewers, the audience, are lucky that we got Mike Garafolo. You're right, Jeff. He's the best, man. He's just amazingly, he's accommodating. He is, he's the best, dude. He really is. As like what you see and then what you listen to with him, just like privately, and he's the same dude. He's just He's awesome. He's just a really good dude, and I just love that he is on this show every single week. And I just love that we can bring him to you every single week. It's why, I'll be honest with you, it's a big reason why I got real upset yesterday about the whole Greg Bell stuff and taking shots at national media. It pisses me off. It really does. Because I know how hard, I don't know Adam Schefter at all, but I know how hard Mike works behind the scenes to get access and to get information. And it's not like he just picked up a microphone and got a camera one day and said, oh, I'm going to be on the NFL Network. This is a guy that has busted his ass from the ground level and has worked all the way up. Okay? He's been in locker rooms. He's covered a beat. He covered a beat for the most grinding city in America to cover a beat. And that would be New York City, covering the Giants for the Star Ledger the years that he did. Okay, and then he worked as a sports radio producer at probably one of the most, I don't want to say toxic, but just volatile markets in America, in Philadelphia at WIP. So he's earned his badge, okay? He's earned his badge. And over the years, he has worked his way up from a sports radio producer to a beat reporter, and now to a host on the NFL Network and a reporter. So, and again, so I do take issues when I hear people taking shots at the national media and taking shots at him specifically, because to sit there and call stories and information made up and that you should only read local and never national, it's a shot at those guys that do it on a national level. I'm not saying they're all perfect, and I'm not saying that some of them don't sit there and make up storylines, and not make up storylines, but do storylines in terms to grab attention and to continue the 24-hour news cycle. Yeah, I mean, sure. I get it. But everybody does. Everyone does this. And people in the newspaper industry do this. Okay? It's why reporters don't write the headlines for a newspaper story, okay? They don't. They have someone else do it, because you need someone to click on the story. When you're opening up a newspaper, okay, you want to grab that reader and say, stop on this article and read it. And so you've got to have a catching headline. This like bait and switch thing that people want to rant and rave about now, they've been around forever. Everyone's always been doing it. In terms of like Adam Schefter and him taking shit this week as well. Like that guy was a long time beat reporter. Like he worked at the PI at one point. Like Jim worked with him. Then went on to have, where he made all of his contacts and made, a name for himself as he went and covered one of the most prominent NFL teams, the Denver Broncos, for the Denver Post, who, again, I don't know what the Denver Post looks like now. But when we were always visiting there, my wife's from there. That Denver Post is like the best, greatest sports section in the history of sports sections. And that's where he made his name. He made his name working there and made a bunch of contacts. So I don't know. I just I get defensive about it. So I'm glad that he's a part of the radio show. And not the radio show, but the sports program that we're doing here. Hey, the Magnolia Belly has checked in. The Thirsty 2-ouncer. We were talking about the triangle earlier. We've got it. It's going to be the same. The triangle apparently is coming back. Heard it from the horse's mouth, and of course we know who the horse's mouth is. The triangle will live again. What was the cost, though, Belly? What was the cost of it? As he was checking in on the live chat there used to be, you'd get a 16-ounce, like in a tub, beer, like a Coors Light and a shot, and I think it was $5. It was the most amazing thing ever. So the triangle's coming back. Oh my God, glorious. Now here's my request to Honda and the crew at the Triangle, okay? And people, if you know them, get word out to them. Don't fix up the basement. Leave the basement as is. Did anyone ever go to the basement at the Triangle? One, okay, that's one. Two, did you even know the basement existed in the triangle? Because there was a basement that sometimes was open. Right at the triangle, right at the point, there were some stairs that took you down to it. And if you ever went into the triangle there off of First Ave, you'd walk up to the bar to the right by the bathroom. There were stairs downstairs. It wasn't open all the time. Wasn't open all the time. But when it was, it got weird. It got weird down there. I spent Belly will remember this. I spent a good portion of my evening into the early and almost late morning inside the Triangle basement after the Seahawks defeated the Carolina Panthers in the 2005 NFC Championship game. God, that was a glorious, glorious day. That really was. It was weird that I'm going to get sidetracked. I'm going to get to the M's closest to a championship, Jake Dickert, here in just a quick second. For some reason, my son and I, we had the Inner Bay. That's when you're supposed to yell Eagles. Banquet last night. And it was just fabulous. We were at a spot in Ballard, Bickerson's Brewery. Go check out Bickerson's Brewery. It's a great little brewery in Ballard. I think it started down in Renton. Great guys. Anyways, we were there, and when we got home, we were just talking football, all this stuff. And we came across and watched some highlights of the Seahawks 49ers NFC Championship game. And I was telling him, like, oh, man, I remember that game, but I was sicker than a dog. I was up in the press box. I had the flu, but I had to be there and work, and I could barely watch the game. But I remember, God, it was such an amazing environment. But you're indoors at a press box. It's not the same thing. The windows aren't open. You just don't feel the environment. And it was crazy. You could see it. Same thing for the Packers NFC Championship. But that one didn't have as much juice because of how the game went, but also because it was in the afternoon. It wasn't at night. Maybe it was because it was the first one, and that's probably why. I don't think even the Niners won. And maybe it's because I was sick and I didn't enjoy it. I don't think it could ever live up to the first one. That Panthers Seahawks NFC Championship game in 2005 was unbelievable. And I think for me was the Sonics, Mariners, all that, just for me, was the single greatest sporting event we had in Seattle. Because I just remember when we were at the radio station, we did a 24-hour show leading up to the game. Like, we were on the air for 24 hours leading up to it, like throughout the night. We're doing shows at the Showbox down on First Ave. And then no one slept. We went right to the game, and the energy and the feel inside that stadium. Because I think everybody knew. Everybody knew. It wasn't like the Niners game when there was doubt. Everybody knew they were going to kick the shit out of them. That they just were. That the Panthers, honestly, that day just stood no chance. And then, obviously, they didn't. Remember, they had the great defensive game plan. They double-teamed Steve Smith all night, and they just beat the crap out of Jake Delhomme, and they ran all over him. And then the game was settled, like, so early that it just allowed this, like, inside the stadium, this celebration, and that the party that ended up going to late into the night, early into the morning, it started inside that stadium. That people, by the time you got into the third quarter, people are booking their trip to Detroit. They're looking at flights. I mean, all of it, because they knew they were going to win the game, because there was just going to be zero doubt that they were going to pull it out, and because they were just dominating them, and they were just clearly the better football team. That wasn't the case with the Niners. The Niners, you were freaking, your ass was clenched the entire game. They were great. And then they were making plays, and it was just a great heavyweight bout back and forth. It was a thrilling game, and there's nothing better than that ending. Nothing better than that ending. I'm just saying that because it was the first time they were in that situation. Well, not the first time. First time at home, they were in that situation to punch their ticket to the Super Bowl. There was a little different vibe inside that stadium. And it's just because it had been such a dark. You were coming out of an era of football in the 90s, and it was awful. It was awful what the Seahawks had gone through, and the team almost moving, and then they didn't, and then Flores was a disaster. Erickson brought it back a little bit, but just couldn't get it over the hump. And then Holmgren comes in, and you get this instant success, and then it stumbles with Mike, and he didn't. You kind of felt like, oh my God, he's not gonna turn it around, and then they eventually did. You know why they turned it around? Because they had an offensive line. That's why they turned it around. It's amazing what you can do. It's amazing that you can get a guy who is a okay running back, not great, an MVP, because, I don't know, your offensive line's unbelievable. Weird how that works out. And you can get to a Super Bowl with a good quarterback, not a great quarterback. But when you have two Hall of Famers, it's, and then a stud at center, and then two other guys that were just solid offensive linemen. Chris Gray was so damn underrated how good he was, and so was Sean Locklear. It's the greatest line in Seahawks history. And they plowed the way for, and I like Sean Alexander, but he the third best running back in franchise history. It just is. These holes were so big for him. Anybody could have run through it at times. This shouldn't totally diminish what Sean Alexander did, but come on. It was amazing what that offensive line did. All right. God, the best news of the day. The triangle's coming back. God, I can't wait. A reminder, we got Hey What the Puck coming up at the end of the show. Again, big thanks to Mike Garafolo for joining us. Opponent preview. Normally we do opponent preview at this time, but again, there's no opponent to preview because they're not playing this week. It's just something that we touched on, and then I'm going to move on to Dickert and move on to the what team's got the best shot to win a championship. The thing is with the Seahawks is I think if they go 0-3 here in these next 3 games, I don't see why they would not entertain the idea of rebuilding, because where are you going? And this idea that you would, if Mike is right, and I agree with Mike, maybe the biggest conversation this offseason for this team is, what do they do, at quarterback? Because I don't think that they feel that he truly is the guy. And again, that's just not a complete knock on Geno Smith, all right? But his age and what he's going to want, if they decide not to do that, my question would be then, why would you pay DK Metcalf? From a business standpoint. I'll make very clear, I like him. I like DK a lot. We've been looking for this guy forever. Now we got him. But you got to look at it from a business standpoint. If you're going to decide that Geno's not your guy, okay, then you don't have anything, all right, at quarterback. You got nothing. Because Hal's not the guy. Okay, so are you going to draft the guy now? Quarterback, these guys that, watch the quarterback class and watch the draft, they're not in love with this class that's coming out. Quinn Ewers and, Cam Ward's a part of it. Cam's been playing great this year. But they're not in love with it. Now, that doesn't mean, there's years where they're in love with the class and it's terrible. So just because some aren't in love with it doesn't mean that one of these guys can't be obviously a difference maker. Nussmeier, who, of course, is the quarterback there at LSU. I know Rob's kind of high on him. Rob Staton from SeahawksDraftBlog.com, who, by the way, has a huge draft story out today. It's a lengthy one. I'm gonna need about 3 of these cocktails I'm holding up to probably get through it. But Rob's got a lengthy article up, SeahawksDraftBlog.com. Why would it make sense to invest $140+ million in a guy who's 28 years old? If that guy in the offseason can fetch you, a number of draft picks and high draft picks and number ones. You got to look at it. And it's not, and you shouldn't be shouted down that you're some idiot and you would never do it. you've got to rebuild this organization. You've got to rebuild this offensive line, and the way to rebuild the offensive line is through the draft. Now, the counter to that would be, my God, they've spent some capital on the offensive line, and it hasn't worked, and that's right. It hasn't. But they are, as this season goes on, and if they continue to lose games, I mean, they are getting further and further and further away from actually a championship team. And who knows? I have zero idea about Abe Lucas. I have no idea. No one does. No one has a clue whether or not he's coming back healthy or if he's ever going to come back. And then you like Cross, but again, now you've got 3 spots for sure and a 4th. And I just went through that 05 team. The reason that team played in the Super Bowl and the reason that team should have won the Super Bowl was because of their offensive line. It wasn't because of Matt Hasselbeck, and it wasn't because of Sean Alexander. I mean, look at their wide receivers on that team. It's because they had the game's most dominant offensive line. And it's such a cliche, and we've got all these, all 22 people out here now. Ray Roberts was checking in the chat earlier. Ray knows what I'm talking about. It's always up front. Always. You have to have a dominant offensive line. You've got to have a dominant defensive line. And if you got those two, your chances are through the roof to be there at the end of the year. As great as Patrick Mahomes is, and he's freaking great. And I think, and me and the Vampire were talking about the other day, and we're watching the game on Monday night. I mean, I think there's going to come a day where you're going to have, and I'm glad that I'm alive during this period, of who is the greatest quarterback. I don't know. I don't know. Because if he wins a couple more, if he wins it this year and does something that no one has ever done before to win 3 straight Super Bowls, even though that this will be his 4th, so he'd still be, 3 behind? The Brady's have 7, right? I'm looking around like someone's in the room. 7, correct? Yeah, I mean, he's going to accomplish something that no one's ever done before in this era of football. And he's not done. And I think there will be a conversation about, is he the greatest of all time? Okay, so the point being was, what doesn't get discussed enough is that interior offensive line is the greatest interior offensive line in the NFL right now. They just are. And those 2 guards and that center, because that's where it starts. So he gets a lot of the publicity, rightfully so. But it's those guys in the trenches that make it happen there for Patrick Mahomes. All right, I promised we would get to it was something that Divish brought up yesterday, and I want to touch on it again, because that was a great question here by Divish. And Divish, I'll be honest with you, he doesn't ask a lot of great questions, but he did yesterday in between his visits to a Walmart in Havre, Montana. In case you missed Divish yesterday, we do an off-season Mariners show with him. He's on every single week, thanks to Reggie and Chalet Bowl. We call it the cold stove, because it's nothing going to be hot about the Mariners offseason. And he asked this question to me about Seattle sports.
Seahawks, UW football, and the Kraken. Which team is the closest to winning a championship? Like the overall championship?
I mean, honestly, I'd say the Mariners.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Are the Seahawks 2 players away? Are they, like their offensive line? You guys talked about they probably need 2 more legit offensive linemen. And how do you get it? It's like the Mariners search for hitters versus the Seahawks search for offensive linemen. The intricacies of baseball tell you that the Mariners are closer because of the pitching and because of what we saw in the playoffs.
It's amazing to think about it. And I think we're right. I think they are. As crazy as upset we are, and rightfully so, about where the Mariners are at and the future of the Mariners. And as much as I think, my God, there's part of me, and I don't mean to be negative about it. They've done this to me. I just can't ever close my eyes and see them like Julio coming under a fly ball and catching it. And they're like, oh my God, they've won the World Series. It's hard for me to see that at times, just based with where they're at. But I think he's right. I think it's correct. I think the Mariners, of all the teams, you're going to wonder, I had to edit it out, but we threw in Husky football in because, I mean, Husky football is a professional team. They've been professional for forever. We did not include, before anyone sends me a text or sends me a comment or something in the chat, we just didn't include the Storm and Sounders. We were just talking about the major big sports, all right? Please don't take that as a knock. But they are evolved because when you start looking at the teams, if you look at the Seahawks, what do the Seahawks have that is the best in the NFL? Nothing. What do the Kraken have that's the best in hockey? Nothing. The Huskies, what do they have that's the best in college football? Nothing. The Mariners have the best pitching staff in baseball. They do. The absolute best pitching staff, the best starters in baseball. They have that. And so that does make them the team in this market that is the closest to winning a championship. Now, it also kind of is a sad commentary maybe on the rest of the teams, right? Of just how far they are away from winning one. Someone made a great joke. Well, I think when the Sonics come back, they'll be closer. Yeah, you might be right. But I think they are. And I think that's therein lies some of the rub, I think, with us as Mariner fans, and is just that we see how close they are. And if they can somehow just get over the hump, it would be great. Go check out that episode yesterday with Divish. He was great. He also offered this up, and I haven't really talked much about this, but we were talking about free agency. You know, what could they go out and acquire in free agency? What would be readily available to them? And there's not a lot. I mean, you go look at the free agent class. You know, they're not going to be in on Juan Soto. They're not going to be on any of the first basemen. Those guys are going to command just way too much money. And then he offered this up yesterday because him and Jude just did their wrap-up show, their Extra Innings podcast, and he put a figure on how much money that he thinks they came up with that these guys have to spend on free agents.
I figure they might have 20 to 25 million to play with in budget this year, maybe even less than that. Like they're not going to shoot it all on one player, you know. And there's not even like that great a fit. Like we were going through the free agents out there, and like from an infield standpoint, to play second or third, there's not a great fit. I mean,
so $20 to $25 million to spend. That ain't a lot of money, guys. That's just not a lot of money on free agents. And whatever they're going to do at second base, it's not going to provide them with a lot. You got to also keep in mind they've got to spend a lot of money on guys for arbitration. Citizen Saul says even with the best pitching, the Mariners are not close. The point is just this, Citizen Salt, which is a great name by the way. Of the teams here, they are. I mean, who's closer than them? I don't know. Someone who's a hockey fan, tell me. I mean, do they seem? I mean, I'm on the outside looking in on the hockey team. They're not playing well again this year, so clearly wasn't the other guy's fault, Hackstall's fault, because every time I look at the box score, they don't score any goals. So it's a talent issue, right? They don't have enough talent. They don't seem to be close, you know, to winning a Stanley Cup. I don't think anyone thinks the Seahawks are close. Do people think the Seahawks are closer than the Mariners to winning a championship? Yeah, I just don't. I don't see it. I don't see it at all. 20 to 25 million, again, is what Divish and Jude kind of came up with. That's what they think that they will have to spend on free agency this offseason. That's gone like that. That's gone in a nanosecond. So I would go into this offseason free agency, which is underway, by the way, you know, not that optimistic because they've told you they don't want to go spend money that route and that that's not how they want to build a team. I also don't, well, it's not that I don't believe them. Well, there's a lot I don't believe them. But when they say they're not going to trade guys, I think their preference with their young pitching staff is to not trade them. I think that's what they prefer to do. But I do think that they're going to be open to it. And if they come across a deal that can help them significantly, I think they'll pull it off. I think they will try, and Divish agrees. And again, go watch and listen to it yesterday, the Ryan Divish show on all the platforms, that, you know, Castillo will be the number one guy they'll try to move. It makes the most sense. He makes money. He's a veteran. He can help out right away. And then thus you don't get rid of your young guys who are they don't cost anything anyways. So you can keep those guys and then maybe still go out, maybe spend a little bit more money, hopefully, if you'd like. All right. Jake Dickert future. So we talked a lot about this week on the Old Crimson podcast about this. This was a subject that came up with John Canzano on Tuesday on Canzano's appearance. And, he talked about how, listen, Jake Dickert wants to stay. And he said it on my show about a month and a half ago. He recently said it with Canzano. I want to coach 10 more years, and that's it. Okay, I'll find the soundbite again. We'll play it. I want to coach 10 more years, and I want to be done. He wants to be done at 50, 51, because he wants to see his kids play high school sports. And I believe him. I truly believe him that he is out after 10 years. And I asked him, do you want to be here, right? Yes, that's the plan. I want to be here. So Canzano brought this up on Tuesday's appearance that, the school is talking to him, and McCoy, the new AD, is talking to Dickert, but they are running into a roadblock with the university.
Well, there's a little bit of apprehension from the administrative side at Washington State, and it's not from the university president. It's not from the athletic director. The apprehension is coming from above the campus. You've got a board of trustees that just had sort of this financial crisis on campus that they have addressed. I think there's a little bit of apprehension from the athletic department and the university to go, hey, we want to extend our football coach 10 years. So it's why I think the Mike Riley approach might be a little more tactful here. But you can offer him something the others can't. You can say to him, look, if you want to coach all the way to your 51, here's how we do it. We just put that rolling extension. You could even say you get 2 years every time you win 6 games, up to 10-year maximum. So all of a sudden, Jake Dickert and his wife are looking around going, look, we have something in Pullman we can get nowhere else.
And I get it from the university standpoint right now. I think in the financial situation that they are in, with the hemorrhaging of money, with the uncertainty of the college landscape, all right? I would see how the Board of Regents and the school, when they're looking at, God, we're cutting this, we're cutting that, and now you want us to come out publicly and say, hey, we've given this guy a 10-year, big-time contract. The public perception will not be good. It just won't. But I want them to do whatever they can to keep this guy. I think he's a good coach. I think he's what's right about college sports. I think he's I'll even backtrack. I think he is what is right about just sports in general. I don't think it's phony. I think this guy is, there's so many different sides to him. There is a fired ass up coach. And we talked about it last week on Cougs Corner when he was on. We got more visits with him coming up, by the way. But I think he deeply cares about these kids, and I think he cares about, just more than just the football players. And I know coaches say that all the time, but I think he really means it. I do believe him that he wants to only coach here. And, I know there's been rumors, last year about him taking other jobs and all that, and you would be a fool not to look. And there was this uncertainty with the Pac-12 and this school anyways. And so he probably was looking out best for himself. Wisconsin will always be a worry for me. If Fickell ends up leaving or getting fired, that would be the school that if that opens up and they came after him, 99% sure he'd be gone. But if it doesn't, then I think you got to, as a school, do everything you can to keep him. So I don't know how you get creative with Mike Riley, as John suggested. Do that. But again, the big piece of the news that John had this week is that, listen, there's a deal on the table. And there is Ann McCoy and is talking with his agent currently about it and trying to get something done. If I'm upper campus, I get the perception of it. I totally understand how it wouldn't look good with the climate of things financially at the school, but you got to do it. Do not let someone like him and the way he runs a program slip through your fingers. Don't do it. because it would be a grave mistake. You'd have to start all over, and who knows who you find. And it's hard to find attractive coaches there to come out and be there and want to be there. And when he says he wants to be there, I believe him. He's a small town guy, and he likes the vibe there of that school. All right. Before we get out of here on the daily puck drop and wrap it up with Hey What the I'm not sure. We went blank for a second there. My apologies. Everybody in the chat, thank you. Also on that QR code, click on that QR code. It's going to take you there to the Pucks Posse community membership. Please sign up there. It's that QR code. You can also go to pucksports.com to join Citizen Salt Bottom, or right, Citizen Salt, that what you're calling you? We need to have a badge for Puck Posse member. Yeah, I'll work on that, Citizen Salt. We'll find out something that you can do. But again, join, please. Pucks Posse community membership there on that QR code on the stream on YouTube and Twitter, and also just go to pucksports.com. But before we go, let's get to Hey What the Puck, brought to you by Restoration One of North Seattle. Your restoration company lets you avoid the stress of water, fire, and mold damage with their property restoration services. Locally owned and operated. Make them your first call when damages affect your residential or commercial property. 206-817-8917. Visit them online, the North Seattle franchise. I want to read this from a high school football coach. Or actually, no, it's a college coach. And it was awesome. It was one of the coolest things I've seen. And I don't know if I can share. Oh, yeah, you know what? I can share my screen. Hold on. Give me 1 second. It's from a coach who I think is at UNLV. And he was talking about the Friday night. It's the final, basically, right? Final game and games for a lot of high school kids. And you can see it right there. Hey, it's right next to the divine manhood, self-improvement. I don't know why there. Coach B.O. He's a director of player personnel at UNLV football. And I can't have the shared screen with this guy and his freaking visceral fat video. So I'll just read it. He wrote this today because it's Thursday. There's a lot of high school football players wrapping up their season today and then tomorrow. And I wanted to read it because I think it's going to hit home for a lot of people, myself included. And obviously, it's been, I think, for a lot of other people that have been playing sports. If you're playing, and Coach B.O. writes, if you are playing your last high school football game tonight or tomorrow, I would ask you to do something. At some point in the night before the game starts, just pause for a second to take in the smells, the atmosphere, the sounds of the crowd and the game. It will never be the same. You can hug your teammates and friends, listen to the sound of your cleats on concrete or gravel, enjoy the last few moments, because once high school is over, the vast majority of players won't ever play again. It's not like softball or basketball or even bowling. There's not many places where you can find a pickup tackle game. For a high school football player, unless they go on to play in college, that is very likely the last time they ever put on shoulder pads and a helmet. I can't imagine what some of those helmets now feel like today. Just like you, I thought I would play forever, but my last game was December 11th, 1993. A lot of life after football was over. Take a second to take it all in and remember it forever. It's a great message. I remember my last football game. I didn't play. Okay, I didn't do anything. I was terrible. But we played South Kitsap, 1993, I guess, because we graduated in 94. And we lost 28-0, I believe. Benji Olsen, Tony Coates were offensive linemen on that team. Anyways, I remember what that locker room was like. People were crying because everyone except for a couple, that was it. They were done. That was the last time they were ever put on a football helmet. For a lot of us, we had played football since 8, 9 years old. And so for all those kids out there that are playing in their last games tonight and tomorrow, and to all the parents because one day I'll probably be in this, sitting up in the stands as a parent watching, my son play. To all the parents out there that have been along the ride for, almost 10 years, you take it in as well, because there's nothing like it. I mean, I love the NFL. I love college. I'm going to tell you right now. I mean, I don't have any kid that plays at Ballard High School. I go watch the Ballard High School team play because I just love it. I love it so much. And there's nothing like watching high school football. It's the best. And so even for parents, take it all in, because, eventually it's going to be over. And when it's over, man, it's going to be sad. And I think it's sad for, a lot of people when, you finally, see those final moments be over, because, watching high school football or participating in it, these are the moments that you kind of love and you look forward to on those Friday nights. And for a lot of these kids that are going to be in it, and this is the final time, and it might be the final time they ever play sports. So it was a great message there by that gentleman that works for UNLV. All right, that's it for us. Appreciate you watching and listening. If you're listening back to it later or watching later, we go live every day at 10 a.m. We're on YouTube. We're on Twitter. The Puck Sports mobile app there as well. You can find everything up at pucksports.com, one-stop shop for everything. But again, go to YouTube. Please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Same thing there for Apple and Spotify, wherever you find your podcast. And again, up at pucksports.com. And when you're there, please subscribe, become a member of the Pucks Posse community membership. I would greatly appreciate it. I want to continue this thing. I want to make sure it keeps going. Without your support, I want to make sure it keeps going. So we need that with your support. I feel very much like a politician right now. All right. We'll talk to you tomorrow. As always, we promise to be better.
No shoes, no dice.
Would anybody like to smoke some pot?
Yeah.
I was born to love you. I was born to lick your face. I was born to rub you. But you were born to rub me first.
What do you need my address for?
We'd like to send out a mailer.
Mother of mercy, I don't speak Japanese!